This I've done off camera. This is ebony dust and super glue. It is to fill the tiny voids that are all around the inlays. So we've got this one in the middle that we need to take care of. I think the intention with this inlay scheme here was to have the 2 diamonds and get rid of whatever this was in the middle. So I'm going to clear out this section in the middle and get some more ebony dust and super glue in there. The material feels very plastic. Must be the original Taylor inlay. I don't know. Yeah, it's definitely plastic. Or something. It's not pearl for sure. Alright, time to make this almost invisible. I don't think it'll be 100% invisible, but it will be almost invisible. So this is the ebony dust that I collected when I leveled the fingerboard. So it's wood from the exact neck. Probably take more than one fill for this. Just going to take a couple of brad nails and the pliers. Usually 2 works pretty good. I can put the super glue onto the brad nail or the brad nails, and I can control where it goes very easily. And there are voids around these inlays as well, just like the others, so I'll also do around those inlays. This is super thin viscosity CA glue. It runs very easily and it penetrates that dust 100%. And yeah, it looks pretty nasty right now, but it'll sand back 100% flush. And I may have to do a second fill. More than likely I will on a gap that big. So I'm going to let this dry for a few minutes while I work on some of the other, getting some of these level. These I've done about a week ago, so they're plenty cured now. This one should cure enough for me to work on it by the time I finish messing with these. Alright, so that's all the inlays with the largest part of the fill filed off. What I'll do really quickly is hit it on the 220 again with the sanding beam, and we'll see what's left that I need to fill. And as I suspected, I'll have to do a second fill there. The fingerboard is looking much better than when the guitar got here. That is not quite yet perfect there. I think some hand sanding will help, and you're going to be able to see that diamond shape that was in there if you look pretty closely, but it's not going to be nearly as bad as the previous issues that were here. And after the fingerboard is oiled, I think it's going to be almost invisible. I'm going to quickly double check that I am satisfied with how level the fingerboard is, since I just hit it on the beam again. It should be just fine, and it is. I like it. That was 120 on the beam. I'll use some 220 by hand, being sure to leave this edge very crisp for now. I don't want to, when I install the fret, I don't want there to be a gap between the board and the fret, so I make sure to leave this edge of the fingerboard very, very sharp for the moment, so that I can get a really good bond at the corner. And then later, after the fret is installed, I'll do a little rounding so it's more comfortable in the hand. And I would say that is a vast improvement. Almost lost that inlay. It almost got sanded completely through. And we almost lost that one. But we didn't. And again, that little black diamond is visible, but that's much less offensive than before. It seems like we could pop some frets in here, but not quite yet. Got a lot of dust in the fret slots I got to get out of here. Then I need to verify the fret slot depth as well as the width of the fret slot. And I'll likely have to recut the fret slots. And then we can move on to fretting. So a lot of this stage is just going to be cleaning up. This will be a small issue here, but I can knock it out. Yeah, it's pushing out actually pretty easily, even just with the back of the X-Acto here. What happened is when I was filling this inlay slot, a little bit of the sawdust and super glue went down into the fret slot. Checking here with the gauge. You can see how deep that tang is going to go. And then that tang is also 23 thousandths, so I'm going to need this little tool here, and I'm going to need my set of feeler gauges. I like to make sure that a 24 thousandth will fit, and it does pretty easily. Alright, now we need to check the depth. This was a 12 radius, so I'll use the 10 to 14. And it looks like we are good. Do have to check the full width of the slot. See how it looks like I'm good here in the middle. Then I go to the edge and I'm not quite so good over here. That's probably due to the slot being cut parallel to the bottom face of the board, and then a radius being applied to the top. The bottom of the slot is not radiused like the top of the fingerboard is. So typically for fret slot depth, this is the sort of thing you would use. It's just a fret saw. This one is designed to pull only, and I can adjust this and get more or less depth showing. However, on this neck, everything is already very, very close to where it needs to be, and sometimes this plexiglass will leave a sort of track mark on the fingerboard that you then have to sand out. So this is my old worn out fret saw. Instead of doing that, since this neck is so close, I'm using my old worn out fret saw. This one was worn out early in my building because I was cutting the entire fret slot with this saw by hand for entire fingerboards, and yeah, it wore it out pretty quickly. So when I resharpened it so that it cuts in both directions, and this is essentially just a hardback cross-cut saw now. But this is so close, like in this case here with this fret slot, I just need a little bit of material off of this one side over here, as that's where the top surface got leveled a little bit more than the rest of the fingerboard, which makes sense because there was a low spot on this side and this side was alright, so everything was sort of brought down to that lower spot. So anyway, just takes a couple of hits. That's about all I'm doing. And then checking again, and I'm at depth. So that's how I'm doing it on this particular guitar. But there's a lot of times where you have to do like the entire middle of the fingerboard, and I will use the one with the depth stop to do that. But in this case, I'm just touching up a few corners. I should be good with what I'm doing here. I'm now satisfied that the fret tank can fully seat in all of these fret slots. The next thing that I like to do helps me in the next step, and it helps years from now, the next time this guitar needs fretted. What I'm going to do is take a triangle file and just take a single pass. It's hard to do because I would normally be where the camera is right now, but I'll just take a pass. If I was in proper position, I could take one pass, but being up here kind of out of position to do this, I had to take a few more than one, and that will allow me to install the fret easier in the next step, and hopefully the next time it comes out, it'll come out good and clean like this without chips all over it, like it did for me this time. Alright, that neck is pretty much ready for frets. I'm going to take a few minutes and deal with all this ebony dust everywhere, and the extra tools that I got out. I really like to press fret wire at every opportunity, and I've worked out one piece of scrap MDF plus the neck caul turned upside down is basically perfect for the top part of the fingerboard, and then one piece of MDF and the neck caul in the correct orientation is just about perfect for this side. This is an important step. There are oils on this fret wire from the manufacturing process. I like to take a little bit of acetone and pipe along the fret wire. This ensures that all those are removed, broken down or removed. And that will, when I glue these frets in, that will ensure that the glue has a better chance of holding onto this fret anyway. I then go over to my bender, and we're looking for a 12-inch radius. I ran a 12-inch radius on this the last time I fretted, but I used a slightly larger fret wire, so I already know that I'm going to have to go just a little bit more round. Let's see what that does. Trying to show you the best view of what I'm looking for. So this is the first piece that I bent. It almost matches. I'm sorry, that's blurry. I can't. There we go. So this is the first piece that I bent. It's just not quite enough radius. This is the second piece that I bent, and this is what I'm looking for. This will press down really nicely and seat very well along the entire length of the fingerboard. And now we have enough radius on both pieces. So now I can cut these to length. And I like to triple check stuff before I go past the point of no return, sort of, on some things. If there's an issue with the fingerboard, this is my last opportunity to correct it. I am still happy with that. It's nice and level. Everything's looking good. When I go to fret a guitar, like everything ready, I'm going to need this wax in a minute. I need my super glue, some brad nails to do the same trick I did earlier. The frets are laid out in order. The jig's been worked out how I'm going to fret it. Hammer's here. I need one more thing. To check how well the fret has seated, I'll use a 1/1000 feeler gauge to make sure that I can't fit this feeler gauge between the fret wire and the fingerboard. Alright, I guess let's start at number 1. So I changed up the angle a little bit here. That's going to look good, I think. That ebony fingerboard and the gold fret wire is going to look really nice. That one seated well on the first try. Take a little bit of wax and I'll put it beside the fret, because I don't want super glue to stick to this fingerboard. Take my super glue, run it up underneath the tang. Both sides. The biggest thing here is we don't want to create runs. And it's not fun to do this and get a big run of super glue down the back of a guitar neck. That's no fun at all. So I got to be really careful about that. That's about the length of time it normally takes me to get happy with a single fret install. So I'll film a few of these just for you to watch, then I'll probably stop filming and just finish the job and show you after they're all installed, and that'll probably be where this video ends. Alright, I'm really thrilled with that. Very, very happy. One of the main reasons I like to use this method with the wax and the super glue from the back is I've done zero cleanup on this other than take just a piece of cloth and just wipe off the top. So there's no scraping. This fingerboard is basically ready to go. There's just a very small trace of, you can see it in a few areas. Yeah, there you go, you can see it there. Just a very small trace of very, very thin super glue, and that should come off when I steel wool the fingerboard. So yeah, that should be plenty for a video, and that's plenty of work for me tonight. So this will probably sit until late next week, and I will be back at it. And what we will do is get the frets flush next week, leveled, crowned, the end done, and I may reinstall the neck. We'll see how far we get next week, but I think this is it for this week.